With every company throwing their hat in the ring towards developing an MMORPG these days, it raises questions. No, not the question about will there be a bust slider, although that is important to know.
Yes, dude!
But the question is, which of these games will rise to the top? Which MMOs will be the next World of Warcraft? And which will be a colossal failure? Well, who can say for certain, but there are some things to look for in the upcoming MMOs that can help you decide for yourself which to sink your time into. Welcome to Vicarious Gaming, and without further ado, here are the things that I think make up a great MMORPG.
Life goes up and it goes down.
The fruits of your labor that come from building your character's power level are very important in any MMO game. A core feature to this type of game is to progress your character forward with powers, gear, abilities, specialties, etc. Almost every MMO has this type of progression, but what differentiates the good MMOs from the bad ones in this area is how they make the progression rewarding and unique, how they keep it engaging and make you want to continue progressing without feeling like you're grinding out levels for the sake of grinding. Looking at you, Warframe. The good MMOs have mastered an enticing feedback loop that make you want to continue to move the game forward, all while giving you the feeling that each character is uniquely your own and fun to play, not just one cookie cutter build or linear progression towards the same outcome. The social aspect of an MMO might be the most important factor. Without a strong social system, you may as well play a more fleshed out, full-fledged RPG game like The Witcher or Elder Scrolls. The game needs to have a community of players that are constantly interacting with each other, not just a solo experience killing NPCs. Things like grouping up to take on different challenges, PvP experiences for fun or to show off their skills, and hub worlds and lobbies where players can group up just for shenanigans and fun. Having a fun, diverse chat system is also something a lot of players look forward to. Towards this same end, an interactive player-based economy for items and currency can go a long way. Who doesn't want to practice the art of sale between clearing out dungeons? Limited time special events are another way people can be brought together. Give people a reason to go to a certain place at a certain time, and you'd be surprised at the turnout. People attract other people. It's like science or something, I don't know. World of Warcraft lost a lot of its social aspect. One such way was by the introduction of flying mounts. You can just fly to where you need to go. You don't see players traversing the world anymore. They also added queues for dungeons, which removed the search for groups, and even running to dungeons, which was a time to chat and get to know each other, and would often run into enemy players doing the same, which would create conflict, and it's all gone. The biggest thing they did, however, was introduced cross-realm, the dreaded cross-realm. This means that you will not see the same players in battlegrounds or dungeon groups again, or very unlikely. It makes it feel like every player is just another random player and is replaceable. Running into players you know routinely creates familiarity and friendships grow. Or if it's an enemy that keeps beating you in a battleground or ganking you, you are motivated to grow stronger and beat that specific player. Competitive PvP is very important to me in an MMORPG game. It is not as important to everyone, but for me, it is the entire reason you spend so much time grinding for gear and upgrades. I could care less if the raid boss dies 10% faster. I want to get gear to dominate other players in fair, competitive competition. Adding a competitive PvP element to the game gives the game so much more depth. As good as the AI in a raid might be, they will never be anywhere close to as adaptive or intuitive as the best players in the world. As metas and strategies change patch to patch, it opens up new and inventive opportunities for players to test their might against one another. Depending on the depth of the changes to the game, you also may be motivated to respec your build or create an entirely new character, further adding to the replayability of the game itself. There's nothing quite like letting other people know you're better than them by flaunting your mastery rank with numbers that aren't even real. However, the art of war isn't a path that's enticing to everyone. That's why the PvE portion of an MMORPG is just as important as PvP. Although an MMO is a multiplayer experience, as the name suggests, the majority of the game is probably going to consist of fighting NPCs. And this experience just simply must be great. A good MMO cultivates fun PvE gameplay. Killing mobs should be fun. Quests should be unique. Environments should feel alive and well built. And since there is typically a lot of grinding in MMOs, PvE content needs to be fresh and not just repetitive. Killing the same mob over and over for hours is not fun. There are many ways to keep the game interactive, fresh, and unique. Not only all of this, but most importantly, it needs to be rewarding. You need to feel like your time spent grinding or learning a boss's attack patterns is rewarded fairly. Difficulty. There has to be a fair level of difficulty in any game or it quickly becomes boring. The challenge and overcoming said challenge is what makes the game worth playing. It is the backbone of the video game genre. However, in an MMO, difficulty drives motivation. What do I mean by this? Well, if the game is too easy, you will not be motivated to level up your character and get the better gear. But with a more difficult game, you want to get better gear consistently and improve your power level because you need to. It's a great experience having a hard time with a boss or a certain zone at first, and then coming back with better gear and having a much easier time. The game needs to be able to create a living, believable world, a world that sucks you into its lore, community, and atmosphere. If you are just grinding for numbers on a spreadsheet, this can get boring really fast. You need to feel like you're interacting in a world and your actions have consequences. When you log in, you should be created with a community of players, living and playing in a world that feels alive. This goes a long way towards feeling attached to the game and feeling like you're a piece of a much larger puzzle, instead of just another indispensable grain of sand on the beach. Fluid and responsive combat. The combat system is more than likely going to be the bread and butter of an MMO, and the bad or bland combat can ruin what would otherwise have been a great, unique game. You spend the majority of your time in an MMO fighting things, whether it's NPCs or players, unless you count AFKing in a city or, depending on the MMO, running from place to place. For this reason, it needs to be fun and fluid. The abilities you have to use should be unique to different builds and classes. There needs to be depth, mechanics to learn, and should be a skill in itself to develop. This leads me to class diversity. Combat needs to be unique to different classes. They need to have unique designs that differentiate between playstyles. They also need to have strong elements that help you live the fantasy of playing said class. A great example is in WoW, when rogues used to be able to pickpocket NPCs to learn a little extra money. It did a great job of making you feel like you are a little sneaky thief, as only rogues could do this. Things like this go a long way for immersion and building class identity. Every player wants to have a unique path for their character that they feel has been carved out just for them. Having a good number of classes and subclasses that make use of all the little nuances between them is paramount towards having a game that will make players want to log on every day. In a game where you have to make choices, it's important to feel like your choices matter. This can go in a multitude of different directions, from quests to class build to faction choice and the like. But having your choices matter really plays into the immersion of the world and also your character identity. It makes the game have higher stakes and gives it more depth. A bad example of this is when a game has cookie cutter builds with barely any choice towards making the class your own. A linear storyline that feels forced and repetitive from multiple character games, and an overall progression arc where it just feels like your choices do not matter at all. There's a lot that goes into making any game, but for the ever-changing atmosphere of the MMORPG, it would do developers justice not to cut corners around a game whose genre is built on player retention. Giving the player a lot to do and a good reason to do it is a fun and rewarding fashion return on investment worth pursuing. Enjoyable combat, a good story, and social interactions in a lively, well-designed environment isn't too much to ask for, is it? A lot to ask for or not, it's just what makes a good MMO. Check out my video about if the Riot Games MMO will be any good. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Peace.